Havana Syndrome. In late 2016, Captain Mike Redman, a seasoned pilot in the US Air Force, was stationed at a remote base in Cuba. His wife, Holly Redman, had recently been sworn in as a congresswoman from their hometown in Ohio, a place they'd both hoped to settle down in one day. But for now, they were worlds apart. Mike stationed in the sweltering heat of Cuba, Holly juggling her newfound responsibilities on Capitol Hill. Mike had never been one for politics, but Holly's drive and ambition had always inspired him. He admired her for fighting so hard to make a difference, though the life of a military man was far simpler to him. But as the weeks dragged on, Mike began noticing something strange on the base. Soldiers under his command, once as sharp as they come, began showing symptoms: migraines, dizziness, nausea, and worse. A strange buzzing sound that seemed to pierce the air at odd hours, disorienting anyone nearby. They called it the Havana Syndrome, but no one could figure out why it was happening. Mike was a man of action, not superstition. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from him. He started asking too many questions, pressing his superiors for answers. The more he dug, the darker the answers became. It was a week later when General Willard Hawke, a grizzled, sharp-eyed officer who had served far too many years in the military, summoned him into his office. His demeanor was cold, calculating. "Captain Redman," the general began, his voice low and steady. "You need to follow the chain of command. You're asking the wrong questions. Believe me, you don't want to know the answers." Mike frowned, not one to back down. "Sir, people are suffering. I want to understand what's going on with my men." The general's lips curled into a tight smile, and he leaned forward. "There's something bigger here, something classified. But you, Redman, you can help. I need your wife to push the right narrative. We need her on board for this. Get her to help us, and I'll make sure this all goes the way it should. You may even be due a promotion." Mike's heart sank. He could feel the weight of the request, the implication of corruption. "I'm not asking my wife to do anything shady, General. I refuse." The general's expression hardened. "Then you'll regret it." The next day, Captain Redman was summoned to the base clinic for a routine medical exam. He knew something wasn't right, but he had no idea what he was walking into. As he entered the sterile, white room, two guards flanked the door. "Routine checkup, Captain," one of them said, his voice devoid of emotion. Mike sat on the examination table, trying to shake the feeling that something was horribly off. And then it happened. A new doctor, not from the base, a needle in his arm. The world blurred, so too his vision, and a piercing sound filled his ears, a sharp, unnatural hum. He felt the air grow thick, suffocating him. The next thing he was unconscious. When he woke, everything felt wrong. The clinic was dark, and the hum was still there, louder now. His head throbbed, an intense, unrelenting pressure behind his eyes. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy, his muscles uncooperative. It was as if something inside him had changed. He was discharged several days later, but the damage had already been done. The headaches persisted, along with strange, vivid hallucinations, figures moving at the edges of his vision, whispers in the dark. His mind was unraveling, and the harder he fought it, the more it consumed him. Back home in Ohio, Holly could see the changes in Mike. He would wake up in a cold sweat, his face pale, his eyes haunted. He refused to talk about what had happened on the base. But one night, as the moonlight filtered through the curtains, he finally broke. "They did something to me, Holly," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know what it was, but I can hear it. That hum, it's in my head. I can't think straight anymore. It's like I'm being programmed." Holly was terrified. She immediately began researching, but what she uncovered only deepened the mystery. The more she pressed, the more she realized that the government was hiding something much darker, than anyone could have imagined. It wasn't just a few isolated cases. There was a pattern, a weaponized experiment, something that was being covered up. Determined to get the truth to the public, Holly made a bold decision. She would bring this to Congress. The world needed to know what was really happening to the men and women stationed in Cuba, and what the government was doing to them. 3 months later, on the day of the hearing, as they drove to Washington, Mike's condition worsened. The sounds in his head had become unbearable, and he could barely focus or drive, so Holly got her assistant to take them. Holly tried to remain calm, but the tension in the vehicle was palpable. As they neared the courthouse, a car suddenly swerved in front of them, blocking their path. Gunshots rang out. Everything happened in an instant. The windshield shattered, and the driver was hit. Holly screamed as blood splattered across the interior into her face. As she looked at Mike, his eyes were completely white. He lunged forward to grip the wheel of the car and steered it towards the building. He had been activated. Very briefly, Holly could hear a faint humming sound as Mike lost control of his own actions. The pain in his head was unbearable. Soon that would not matter anymore. The car crashed straight into the side wall. Just then, a pair of figures in dark clothing emerged from a blacked-out van, rifles raised. They unloaded a deadly number of shots and disappeared as quickly as they had come, leaving behind only death and destruction. The police called it a botched robbery, but a few people knew the truth. It wasn't random. It was an execution. Months later, after their deaths were ruled a tragic accident, the government reluctantly admitted that Havana Syndrome was real. But they never acknowledged the true cause. They never spoke of the experiments, the serum that had been injected into Mike, or the lies that had turned their lives upside down. The truth was buried for a time, and with it, the silent humming that haunted so many brave souls, and still does. Yet in the stillness of the night, the whispers of a conspiracy about what happened in Cuba and the military-industrial complex continues to this very day. The end.